It's a major milestone for any aspiring startup to reach their first 100 customers and deliver them a sense of satisfaction with their product or service. So today we are gathered here on this platform to enlighten ourselves with the strategies used by the founders of some very great businesses. With this, I would like to introduce you all to the honorable speakers we have with us today, who won the hearts of their first 100 and then to thousands and lakhs of customers. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Rishi Baveja, the co-founder of Boxfit. He completed his graduation in economics from Cambridge University. Post that, he did a one-year course at London Business School. After completing his education in the UK, he became the manager of coalition development. Later, he moved to India and started to look for the kind of gyms he had in the UK. It was then when he first found Boxfit. Today, he is the co-founder of Boxfit, which is based on the training used for boxing, including skipping, boxing drills, footwork, and abdominal workouts. Its at-home workout sessions have revolutionized the fitness regime, peculiarly in the lockdown. It is extensively popular among fitness enthusiasts and is doing great at present. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us today. We are delighted to have you. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Shailesh Prithani, the co-founder and CEO of Doxper. Shailesh is a computer science engineer who graduated from IIT Roorkee. The knowledge he acquired as an IIT student led him to create an AI-powered data capturing solution called Doxper. Doxper assists doctors to instantly digitize their case sheets with the help of a digital pen and encoded paper that can be integrated with existing EMR systems. Doxper aims to revolutionize the healthcare industry with its technological method by employing the zero behavior change. Thank you so much, sir, for your prestigious presence. I would like to welcome the agri-tech giant, Mr. Prashant Patil, the founder of Mera Kisan. His early education took place in Gulbarga, and as time went by, he started his new journey as an IT business consultant in Australia. It was during this time that he decided to establish Mera Kisan, putting into play his 12 years of experience in the field of IT and marketing. Mera Kisan has impacted the lives of nearly 1 lakh farmers and up to 500 businesses across India. It's an honor to have him today with us. Now, I'd like to welcome the very young and talented Miss Meena, the founder of Agrowave. She has been listed in Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia, Top 10 Innovators of India by India Today magazine, and many more. Born and brought up in a small village in Rajasthan, she completed her engineering from IIT Delhi and discovered the need of the hour for the farmers in India. That is, for a dedicated marketplace and getting a fair price for their produce. That's when she decided to launch her startup Agrowave for the benefit of farmers. The main purpose of the startup is to help Indian farmers grow and sell produce by optimizing their existing agricultural supply chain. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here with us today. Now, I would like to introduce you all to the team of Startup Stairs. I welcome Ms. Preet Sandhu, the founder of Startup Stairs, who is an expert in the education industry for more than a decade. Mr. Mohit Goyal, the co-founder of Startup Stairs, who is a chartered accountant by profession. Mr. Jitendra Elawat, the co-founding member, who is a company secretariat by profession. Mr. Chinmay Girnarkar, the co-founding member, who is an expert in marketing. Mr. Gagandeep Singh, the co-founding member, who holds expertise in tech. Now, I would like to request Ms. Preet Sandhu to give us a brief about Startup Stairs.
Thank you, Palak. Thank you so much for the insightful introduction about the speakers. I welcome my audience and all my speakers of the panel today for the webinar, How to Win First 100 Customers Through Various Sales and Marketing Strategies. Before taking much time, I'll give a very brief about the Startup Stairs. We are a seed stage accelerator, and we are Gurugram-based seed stage accelerator. We are working with the startups from the ideation stage to the growth stage. In January 2022, we are coming up with our first cohort of the startups, and the program will be of 3 months. We'll start with the idea validation till the scaling and the funding of the idea. So in the today webinar, we are coming up with the 4 speakers who have developed their idea, they have worked on their idea, and then they have established a base of a good number of customers, and we are going to learn from today's webinar that how they have incorporated strategies of sales and marketing to win their first 100 customer. So I am not going to take much of the time. So I'll start with my question, the first round of the questions. My first question to Mr. Rishi Baveja. Being a co-founder of Boxfit, a startup which is from the fitness industry, and of course it's on the tech based, what are your opinions on the personal branding? Do you think the influencer industry is at competitive edge and becoming significant tool in the advertisement?
So like I think that if you look at influencers, right, certainly the way we look at them, we kind of categorize them into three different buckets, right? So you know, the world has moved a long way, you know, with the likes of everything from YouTube to Instagram, TikTok, right? All these fantastic creative platforms where people are now the stars, you know, of the show. You know, like I personally, you know, look at a random guy in the US who makes chess videos, and which obviously is something that was not possible, you know, 10 years ago. And so we categorize them into three buckets, right? So one is what we call the extremely large influencers, you know, maybe kind of 500K plus. And there we look at them as very much the top of the marketing funnel. So very much in the awareness side of things. So this is when you just want people to, you know, you want to shout about your brand. You want people to just recognize you. You don't really want them to interact, but they just kind of see something, hear what you're about, and you know, maybe you hit them further down the line. Then we have the kind of I say the smaller influencers. I say for us, it's kind of anywhere from maybe 50 to 150K. I'm using Instagram metrics just as a kind of a baseline here, you know, where is a bit more consideration. And, you know, this is where you start to have a bit more interest in seeing what these people are doing, affects more the consideration of your particular product. And finally, I think something that which is, you know, we've seen an extremely strong strategy used by many international brands. So if you were to look at, say, Gymshark, the clothing brand, or there's an Australian brand called Black Milk leggings. One of the most, you know, I think one of the most notable case studies of influencer marketing to date. But then you start, you know, getting these micro influencers, and these guys really do influence kind of the purchase decision, you know, of your customers. Have very, very engaged audiences, you know, even if it's only a few thousand people. So I think that influencers are extremely important when using the right way. I think that, you know, we've kind of unfortunately come to a place where you will see people using influencers for influencers' sake, whereas kind of what we try to do is have people that are passionate about our brand. Like, you don't want necessarily, like, I don't personally believe in a lot of paid influencer promotions, but rather, you know, give people a product when they actually love it, let them be enthusiastic about it, let that kind of passion shine through, because that's really what's going to spread both your awareness and kind of hit that consideration part of the funnel for your customers. I think the ultimate goal really for any successful brand is that you actually then, once you get enough traction and enough kind of interesting content, it's where your customers themselves become the content creators for your brand, right? And you know, and I think that is actually the most powerful thing that can happen, right? So if you look at us now, the amount of people that will post while they're doing an online program, that will kind of mention other people, that will kind of record themselves doing workouts. So, you know, I think when your users start generating the content for you, that's kind of really the end goal for us, and that becomes an extremely virtuous cycle if you can hit that.
Yeah, it's really insightful answer, Rishi. I also have seen that micro influencers, they are generating a very engaging content these days, and they have very engaging audience. I have seen. So reports are also saying the same. So this industry definitely is going to grow, I guess, and it is going to overpower the industry, the traditional way of advertisement industry. Yeah, it's there. So, my next question to our second speaker of the panel, Mr. Shailesh Prithani. So, when you had to acquire your first established healthcare business or practitioner as your first customer, of course, you must have been there to answer all of the queries. How did you find challenging to answer their all queries, being into the position of selling solutions with indifferent educational background? What strategies post first customer you adopted specifically to acquire your further customers even today?
Uh, Thank you for that question, Preet. Uh, First of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel, and I also welcome all the people in the audience here. Now, B2B works very, very different than B2C. And, when I'm talking about my first customer, I'm actually talking about 2015, right, which was almost 6 years ago. Things have changed quite a lot, in terms of how you approach marketing. People these days are more aware of better and better tools of reaching out. So, when you're talking about indifference in terms of background, in terms of, industry, me coming from an engineering or a business background with not much healthcare understanding or experience at the time, and as well as, talking to doctors and hospitals. See, one thing that is the most important here, and everybody should be aware or should know, is what industry they're getting into, and they should be aware of who their customers are. If you don't know that, and if you don't do your basic work, you are set up for a failure. So when you get to that point, you have to spend a lot of time understanding your customers first before you even go and build a product, or you go to go to sell your product. So when we started, it wasn't very difficult. I myself have tried to visit a lot of doctors, being patient, acting as a patient and try and understand how they do what they do, right? And carry some of my friends and you're the patient today. Let's just go and see what the doctor is saying and how does the doctor practice. What are the challenges that he has, and then in that conversation, bring up and ask certain questions to the doctor. So in a B2B sale, what really is important is solving that problem. And for that, you have to really understand the problem well. And if you're there understanding the problem, and somewhere you can get one or two big factors satisfied, you have your early customer. Now, in a B2B product, or if your product is half ready, you may have to get that customer on board, even if the customer doesn't pay, because that's not important at that point in time. Because if that is a customer, and especially in B2B, if they're too engaged with you because you're solving that problem for them, which, unlike B2C, which is a large market, there can be a lot of players solving problems for them. B2B is different. B2B, you won't find a lot of people solving their problems. So if you come up with a solution to their problem, they would actually spend time with you and help you build your solution better. So get your first or second or third customer, right? Even if it takes, whatever it takes to get them on board, because once you start working with them is when they will give you a lot of feedback. And that's when you start building your product better, right? And once you get there, B2B works very different, right? B2B is not necessarily, where you can just go on the social media and find your customers. B2B works very, very good, exceptionally well on word of mouth. I mean, I know B2C does as well, but you can acquire B2C customers through social media, not B2B. So do that, and also understand there is something that we didn't do then, but I can tell you it's very, very important now, is to understand your customer persona. As in, who is that doctor? What does he do? What kind of apps the doctor would have on the phone? Where would he spend most of his time? How much is he on social media? Which are the platforms? And that's the way that you approach that customer of yours.
Thank you so much, Shailesh ji. Sir, I also agree. It's a beautiful takeaway from your answer that you visited so many doctors as a patient first to understand what is their problem. That's a really tricky thing which you have done, and it's a good way to see what kind of the problems your customer are facing, and then you are developing the solution accordingly. And of course, we do agree that it's as per the reports also, B2B is always different if we compare it with the B2C, and it is very difficult market. But the way you have done so far is amazing. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
So thank you for the answer, sir. My next question to Mr. Prashant Patil. Procuring organic produce in itself is a big task. So how do you manage to acquire such farmers and land to maintain the quality of the procured produce? So you are on mute. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Preet. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all the speakers for the great job they have been doing. And again, I even congratulate all the organizers bringing the speakers on this platform so that the knowledge engagement can happen really well, especially for the startup world. So I think the question is all about, Preet, you're asking about how is the procurement happening in the farmers. So in terms of the organic, so first thing I think we all should be very proud about that India has got the highest number of organic farmers in the world. Okay. So the total number of organic farmers we have is 8,46,000 organic farmers. So which is a very big number across the globe. Okay. And in the last few years, there has been a very good, big accelerated transformation happening in the organic farming. There's a lot of farmers who have been transforming from conventional farming to organic farming. So to understand the basic procurement practice, it is organic basically is not just the certification part of it, but I think especially it is all about the chemical content which is present in each of the produce. So when you are procuring any of the organic produce, it should be 100% chemical free in that. So as per the compliances, it has to go through the lab, and then the lab checks the material, and then if there is any chemical content found, we are not supposed to use it. So I think the process or the compliance itself is really very big, whether it is in India or whether it is internationally. Especially again in domestic, it is not so. We are supposed to test only 156 chemicals. When you go to Europe, you are supposed to test more than 600 chemicals when you are actually supplying the organic produce. For example, our Meera Kisan currently present in Netherlands, it is present in New Zealand as well, and in Australia as well. So, so when you're supplying, so each country has got its own compliance related to organic chemical content part of it. Yeah. So, but the good part of organic is that organic happens through a very closed loop, and it's quite organized. The supply chain is really very well organized. The farmer definitely, so we procure only from the 100% certified organic farmers. So for example, to become an organic farmer, she can't just raise a hand and say that today is my organic produce. So it's quite a rigorous process. So you have to do organic farming for almost 3 years. Okay. So in the third year, where you actually get a certification from the government of India, it's like taking your driving license from P1, P2, and the final license sort of thing. So in the third year, you get a certification from the farmer. So the farmer gets a certification. So we only procure from the certified farmers. And so the government has done a very good job. So where you can actually find the farmer itself where the organic is being produced. So either the farmer can get individual certification, or he can become a group of farmers. Okay. So either Preet can become a single organic farmer, or she can bring all the whole village of 400, 500 farmers and take a certification under which the organic farming she can do it. And it is actually monitored by the certification agencies. So now again, the procurement again depends upon you, what product line are you into. Yeah. So we as a Meera Kisan, we are into non-perishable organic products. We are not into fresh foods and vegetables. So so we only procure like pulses, cereals, millets, and other products which is available. So we have our own brand, which is in the Meera Kisan brand. So giving an example, so for example, honey, we source it from Jim Corbett. which is from the wild forest. We actually procure from there. Similarly, we procure millets from Karnataka. There is 8,600 farmers who are actually growing millets. They are organically growing it. So it's a big society sort of thing. So understanding the geographicals of the produce and the farmer group. So we have a very good network. So in the last 3 years, we have built a very strong network. So we are again part of Mahindra groups as well. So Mahindra has funded this organization. And now the Indian Vice Captain, Mr. Ajinkya Rane, is also brand ambassador of this product here. So hope that answers your question, Preet.
Yeah, great insight. Even sir, from the last few months, I am into mentoring one of the agrotech domain, the startup. So in the reports I have seen, even I have heard from the people that there is a difference in the definition of organic. If we talk about organic in India, and then if we talk about organic in Europe, there is a difference in the definition of both organic produce. But now from your answer today, I got to know that this is just about the chemical, the number of chemical check. Like in India, you check 150 chemicals, and in Europe you check about 600 chemicals.
Yes,
so that's how the difference is. Yeah, it's a very insightful answer, sir. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you.
So my next question to Miss Anu Meena. She's the founder of Agrowaves. So Anu, before winning the customers, it is always necessary to have an understanding with your end customers and the service providers. Since the core of Agrowave is farmers, so how did you get on board with them and win their trust? In fact, when we are going through this Kisan Andolan and all such stuff, but you are there and you have farmers in your kitty and you have win their trust. So how was it challenging and how you did it?
First of all, thank you for asking that question. It is very, very critical for us, to build trust with them. It's not just a transactional business with the farmers that you can onboard them by giving more price or something like that. So we faced a lot of struggle. We did pivot our models many times, and then initially we were actually buying the produce from the farmers random from here and there. We were basically facing difficulties in consistency, like the regularity from the same farmers. So now what we have done is we have identified why it is not, what are the challenges, what they need to sell the produce repetitively. So, we have basically designed mobile pickup stations. So we are basically building these mobile pickup stations across the country, and in one village there could be multiple mobile pickup stations. Mobile pickup station, nothing but a point where a farmer come and sell his produce, which is basically at his own farm gate. So he doesn't need to go anywhere. Like he doesn't need to arrange transport. He doesn't need to go to mandi. He doesn't need to, find buyers. So it's like we're giving them comfort, and that's how we're able to win their trust. I think that is the only way we have figured it out so far, that it is hassle-free for them. Like they don't have to do anything. They just are able to sell the produce from their own farm gates. They just have to speak to our executives or have to use the mobile application. That's it.
Okay.
So technically, that has been the...
Okay, so you have developed basically a product which is hassle-free for them, and they do not need to go so far from their own place. They do not need to arrange transportation, any sort of a thing. So you are at their gate to buy their produce. That's how you have built your model. Yeah, that's great. That's great to know. So our first round of questions were very specific and with respect to the domain of the speakers of the panel. Now we have set off second round of questions wherein my co-founding team member Chinmay is with me. He will be asking general questions related to the ad tech industry. He's a professional from the ad tech industry, and he has own set of questions to all speakers of the panel. So I am handing over the session from here to the Chinmay. Thank you so much to all my speakers of the panel for the day. Please unmute yourself, Chinmay.
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, Preet. I'm first off really happy to have such a diverse panel today, and which actually brings me to the first question I have. Be it any business, right? Be it B2B, B2C, or even direct to consumers, founders today have so much access to multiple acquisition channels. So, like, we have social media, we have email marketing, and there's now personalized email marketing for B2Bs, there's communities, and even sometimes we have to go on ground to get our first customer. For somebody who's really starting out, it might get often confusing. I'd love to know from each of you what strategies and acquisition channels specifically worked for you in, let's say, getting your first customer and then scaling it to the hundredth mark. So Shailesh, why don't we start with you first?
Hi, Chinmay. Sure. So one of the biggest things is, as I said previously, B2B and B2C are two different, right? Knowing where your customer and your user persona is how you decide what marketing channel to use, right? When we were in early days, we did all the experiments and realized some of them don't work. If I have to go and actually sell to a doctor, a technology that helps in digitizing prescriptions, Facebook is probably not the right place, right? I mean, doctor is not on Facebook for looking at some of these advertisements, let's say, per se, right? And how do you go actually to a focus group? Or let's say even LinkedIn, doctor is probably not the one who is spending a lot of time on the LinkedIn. Maybe hospital management is, right? But again, very, very different. So we had to really dig deep and figure out, how do we approach doctors, and which is where can I find a lot of them, right, together, so that one way or the other, either physically or through another media, I can reach out to them. That's what you do effectively when you're doing marketing. Yeah. So for our case, we realize doctors are usually in their doctor community groups, right? Some of their social events that happen on a regular basis, let's say every month or every quarter, their local forums, or you go through, the specific associations of a certain specialty, or some of the best ones are if you find some rock star doctors who love your product, ask them to post it on their WhatsApp groups. Right? They have very, very close interactions within those. And honestly, those are the only ones that work for us, right? Any other thing on Facebook or LinkedIn or a normal social media, forget about Instagram totally, really, would nothing worked, right? So you have to really, really first understand, where does your customer spend time, and which is a platform where you can get potentially a lot of customers together, is how you start your marketing activities. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Yeah, absolutely, Shailesh. I mean, dialing in who is your customer first, like getting that persona right. And then, the second usual question that we ask in marketing, where are they congregating? So that, we really reach them in a place where we can, essentially deploy our messaging and see some of them really bite onto the hook. So, that's a great insight. Anu, you come from a completely different perspective and spectrum. How was your, journey in acquiring your first and then scaling that acquisition channel to, let's say, first 100?
Yeah, so in our case, acquiring customer has not been that difficult, but the most important thing is retaining them, right? It's not like you onboard first 100 customers and then losing first 100 and then onboarding another 100, right? So I think the retention has been really, really challenging for us, and that is, I answered in my last discussion also, like we were able to achieve the trust of the farmers when we started this mobile pickup station model, because they keep the vehicle moving every day, and then we as human trust things we see more than things we hear. We just hear out, right? So this mobile pickup stations, like moving our vehicles around, in the villages, has really been helpful for us to build more and more farmers. And even the references, like for example, one farmer has been selling to us, and then he is happy that the truck is coming every day, and they are able to save time, and they don't need to go mandis like raat ko 3 baje and all. So they talk to other farmers, and then they just start selling to us through these mobile pickup stations only.
Great. I mean, that's a great answer, Anu. I feel I was going to ask about the retention question later, but I feel you answered that quite well, that, acquisition and retention go hand in hand. It's not that you're just running the acquisition engine and not focusing on retention of the customers.
Right.
That's perfect. Rishi, I'd like to come to you. You already in your previous question answered that you had a complete funnel built out wherein it was awareness, consideration, and then, the buying decision comes in. And often for direct to consumers or even B2C brands, they mostly start with ads or let's say influencers. And sometimes somebody who's really bootstrapping might not have all sort of a budget to really go and do the awareness at the first level with influencers. So definitely I'd like to know how you started and scaled it to, let's say, your first 100. But what are some of the also effective ways in somebody who's looking to enter into influencers can do it in a completely cost-effective way?
Sure. I think firstly, I just want to echo the sentiments of Shailesh and Anu, which is, I think step one, whether you are in B2B or B2C, is understanding, where does your customer hang out? What do they do? Where are the trust barriers the lowest for them? I think, Shailesh mentioned, right, WhatsApp groups. And I'm coming from a family where my mother, father, and brother are all doctors. I am kind of all too familiar with these kind of medical groups. And as Anu said, it's no use having a leaky bucket, where acquisition is kind of only half of the equation. But maybe to answer your question and give you a little insight from something that we actually had to do was, we started with offline studios, and we'd always planned to go online. But, when the lockdown happened, we accelerated the development of our online product and then had to scale that, accordingly. And we have a very, very different customer set online, right? So we started building a brand new product, had 0 customers. When we were doing our offline studios, there was a lot of display marketing. We did a lot of, hyper local targeting, right? Because this is where you're trying to get people into a physical location. And when we launched our online product, because the challenge that we had, right, was we're a 10-20 fitness product, and initial challenge, we said to everyone, okay, it is better for you. It's better for you to come into our studio. You're gonna get in your car, you're gonna face Delhi traffic, gonna come into the studio, because we are going to give you a better experience and a better product. And suddenly our next point was, okay, well, now we have online. What we're saying is, actually, we're going to give you a convenience back and maintain 70% of the experience. And, our customers now on the online side, they no longer obviously were geographically bound, right? We looked at a lot more, digital channels, and we started from 0, right? In November 20, when we launched the online product, we had 40 customers. Today that number is 3,500, and it was, for us, we started very, very small. We are kind of, we've done an angel round, but semi bootstrapped, and so we didn't have these kind of crazy marketing budgets. We didn't have the influencer marketing came a lot later for us. But step one really is making sure that you have product market fit. And for that, I'm big advocate of all these kind of like guerrilla marketing strategies. There's a great book on kind of product market fit called The Mom Test as well, which I kind of recommend everybody reading. And really what you want to do, and we had the same thing, right? Because I would say when we launched, we actually didn't have the product right. And we just went to people and we said, hey, use it. We just tell us everything you can about online product, right? 100 people, within, I mean, assuming you're in the kind of D2C space, if you're in B2B, it's a slightly different kettle of fish. But the sentiment remains the same, which is get people using your product, understand what is good, what is bad, right? Start iterating, and it's it's such a it sounds a little cliched, but I promise you that you will know when you have product market fit. You will know, and all of a sudden you will just feel that bang. So I think that again, to come back to your point about your first 100 customers, I would say aggressively do whatever you need to do to get people to use your product. Give it to them for free. Go stand in shops, of kind of associated brands of your target customers. If you don't have the budget to run, these kind of Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn campaigns or so forth, but just get your product in the hands of people, get them using it, get that feedback started, and then iterate. So I think for your particularly, I'm talking very much from a D2C space here. Again, one of the things that we found, honestly, when we launched it as a subscription product, and honestly, it was not the right fit. And this took us about month and a half, 2 months to really understand before we kept iterating, and then launched kind of what we have as the Movie Star Body program, which is a much more guided, holistic. It's not a subscription, right? Again, especially in India, there's a lot of trust barriers when it comes to kind of subscription products as well, right? I mean, even Amazon, Netflix, and Spotify have had their kind of fair share of difficulties breaking down those barriers, but they've done it extremely successfully, obviously. So yeah, I think for your first 100 customers, do anything it takes to get people just using your product, and you will start to understand whether you actually have product market fit. I think someone asked for the book. It's called the mom test, MOMTEST. So the mom test. You get into stores, knock on your friends and family's doors, go to people that hate your product. You want people that hate it. You don't necessarily want to give it to everyone that loves it, because the people that hate it will also tell you, what might be wrong with it or how you can improve it. So that would kind of be my kind of 2 cents. And then I think, look, as you start to scale beyond that, now we, again, particularly in the D2C space, again, finding where your customers hang out. I think Shailesh mentioned, what is the real estate of your customer, right? Like, what apps do they use? What coffee do they drink? Where do they spend their free time? Are they LinkedIn first? Are they Instagram first? Now we probably acquire almost 1,000 customers a month from Facebook, but that also took a lot of time. Our first customers, we literally said, hey, we called the guys in the studio and said, hey, like, we're launching an online product. We know that you can't consume fitness right now. Try it out. Tell us what's terrible. Tell us what's wonderful, and we'll kind of work on it. And that's kind of really what we did, and just iterated. And now actually what's interesting for us is that, again, I say it's a very different persona for us. The 95% of our online customers today have never set foot in a Boxfit studio. So, it was also finding out who is that customer, what is their price point, what do they do differently, because it's certainly for us, again, a very different demographic to the guys that come into the studio and take personal trainings or do group sessions. The demographic is extremely different, the goals are different, and therefore the channel is different. And sorry, I've kind of gone on a little bit, but the last thing that I would say that I think is extremely key to marketing, not just now, but also within, if you look going forwards, is that people are demanding more and more personalization. You need to speak to people in the right way, at the right time, through the right channel. And this is like true across offline retail, online, omnichannel stores. The level of personalization, especially with all the tools that you have at your disposal, is going up and up and up and up. And if you can speak to people through the right voice, say through the right channel at the right time, at the right place, right? Whether that be the kind of WhatsApp groups for doctors that Shailesh mentioned, whether that be, I don't know, like a farmers convention for Anu, or, or for us, whether it be in the fitness community or just, within Instagram. It's critical to make sure you communicate with them the way they like to be communicated to, and with a level of personalization that makes sense for them, because we are no longer we're no longer in a world where we push products to consumers. We are now in a world where consumers will kind of pull. We're a very consumer pulled. They will tell us what they want and we will build it. And that's really kind of, I think, where we're going more and more.
That was a lovely answer, Rishi. In fact, what really resonated with me is the mom's test. Like, before even you start with the mass marketing, really you have to see if you have a product market fit, see what's the feedback from the customer and not from your mom, who will always praise you. And that's a great book which tells you that get the product right first. And, sort of it also resonated with Paul Graham from YC. He says, at start, don't think of scale, do things that don't scale. And once you start seeing a product market fit, you will find marketing that will really scale. But initially you have to get to the ground, get them that user experience. And it's not that the reason I ask this question is people often think that social media or Instagram is the right channel, but from Shailesh, your talk, even Anu, it's like, it's never a fixed channel, right? You have to go out, you have to experiment, see where are they congregating, who's your customer, and do whatever it takes to build that product first. So what lovely thoughts on that. Prashant, why don't we hear your journey from getting from the first to 100th customer, and what channels work for you?
Thank you, Chinmay. I think most of the points were actually being covered by Shailesh and Anu as well. So I'll be very specific about, and I'll try to take some very short period and explain. I think it is not about, like Anu mentioned, that it is not about having those 100 customers, but retaining those 100 customers is very important. But for me, I think the experience has been that one, it is important that to know who is not your customer as well. Okay, so the biggest mistakes what we do is that we get into wrong customers as well. So in a simplified way, I think one, you definitely need to know who is your customer. Very importantly, need to know who is not your customer as well. And second point about getting the customers, 100 customers, it is pretty easy to get the customers, but important is that do they fit into your financial model is very, very important. Yeah. So why the customer retention is not so high? Because it doesn't fit if your model. You keep on changing your customers. So first of all, before getting into your customers, you need to be very clear about what is your financial model is all about in terms of you are acquiring the customer, what are you expecting from the customers. So whether it is in your B2B business or in your B2B2C business, or whether it is in the B2C customer. So very importantly, if your financial model is clear, so your customer retention number is very high. And as I mentioned in my first point, you definitely need to know who is not your customer as well. Yeah. So that's it, Chinmay. I think most of the things have been explained already by the other panelists. So I wanted to just be more specific about it here.
That's great, Prashant, because often we also, while working with brands, when we sit down to write down who's your customer, the list is always broad, and we have to always tell them, niche it down, go a little bit specific. And I guess what you mentioned, right, who's not your customer, if we define that first, the exercise becomes way easier. And you sort of, identify that. Great. And it's also one important point that you mentioned. It's also important to be flexible. And as you experiment and spend more on acquisition and focus on retention as well, it gets, new and better.
So very important is to be clear your financial model, right? So what margins you're looking for, right? So what is your payment term to these customers? Okay. So very, very important, but not many people, because sales and marketing is one part of it. But if you're clear with the financial model, your sales and marketing becomes very easier.
Correct. So, I mean, yeah, the unit economics should be very right? After all, it's, if you have more profits, more money, then you're going out and acquiring more customers and getting the highest market share. Yeah. That's perfect. So, which which again comes back to Anu, you, Prashant, you quite mentioned on the retention part, and which is what I want to get to now. When the competition is really cutthroat. Now, Shailesh, I'll begin with you first, and especially in a SaaS wherein there's so-called a high churn rate, like industry faces a high churn rate, and then we have to also maintain a 3:1 ratio between your lifetime value acquisition. What are some of the practices that you really do in your business or in your industry that you've seen to create the surprise and delight amongst the customers and retain them so that they really climb up the financial and the value ladder for you?
Yeah, Chinmay, the only mantra here is delight your customer, and there is no other mantra whatsoever. Right? If your customer is satisfied with what you're providing, right, and really meets the demand or the need of the customer is just going to stick with you. The other thing is B2B plays out a little different than B2C. B2B, first of all, sales cycles are longer. It takes a lot of hard work to make that deal or the closure happen. But once you do, it's equally hard for them to kick you out as well. So B2B, you're integrated in the system, they're used to you, whichever way. Difficult to get in, but if they really love what you're doing, it's difficult for them to throw you out. Okay, first thing. The second thing that is there is when you're looking at a B2B versus a B2C, customer delight and customer satisfaction is important everywhere, to be very honest, right? Otherwise, people will not renew, give it up, whichever way. One thing that I suddenly feel and have noticed this is the room or the margin for error or a product not 100% is literally zero in a B2C category, while it's pretty decent, or in a B2B setting, people would be fine with a product which does not work, which does not have, let's say, the best UI, UX, or user experience, as long as it does the job that they want, right? If they want to get a report output, and if the UX is not great, UI is clunky, it's fine, right? It'll work for them. Does not work for a B2C. Now, the whole thing reverses if the product is free for a B2C category. If the product is free, they'll try anything. But if it's a paid product, even if you're charging 1 rupee in a B2C category, they want the product to be perfect. So depending on where you are and which category you're serving, who, again, you need to know your customer persona very, very well. And again, who's the one paying for it? Like for an individual clinic, when we go to the doctors, it's the doctors who's paying for it. But when we have hospitals that we sign up, it's the hospital management who's paying for it. And then, the doctors end up becoming the secondary customer. The primary customer is the hospital management. As I said, in all cases, delighting the customer is very, very important. Meeting their needs, and if you're satisfying them, is the foremost. Nothing else comes even close to that. So if you're able to do that, you'll retain your customer. There's no question. Nobody likes change. Nobody likes change.
Perfect. I mean, Shailesh, yeah, I mean, definitely having long cycles for onboarding a customer, but once they are here with you, then it's quite, B2C are more there for criticism, but with B2B, as you mentioned, it's quite easy. Then Rishi, I'd like to jump to you here, where in the D2C space, where there are now a lot of yoga alternative ways for fitness, how do you really carve out the messaging, and how do you really retain them onto Boxfit? So some of the stories that have created a surprise and delight, so that our audience really understand what exactly delight means, and something that really resonated with the audience, that the audience can learn from.
Sure, and I think this kind of also comes back to some of the discussion that we've had about kind of knowing who your customer is, who your customer is not, and and what is your value proposition and differentiation, right? So one of the things that we have placed an extremely strong emphasis on is both freshness of content and also the live nature, right? So we go live, we do live workouts via our app like every single day, and they are live, they are new, people can speak to the instructor. We want to create the closest thing to an in-studio experience with all the kind of convenience of being able to do it from your home. So I think, you know, looking at that, when you compare us to, say, you know, a lot of the on-demand you know, providers out there, and we do offer on-demand as well, but one of our, like, you know, our USPs is kind of like not just live but also experiential lives, you know. So we also have something called the locker room, where we'll have like instructors watching your form as you do the live workout, and you know, they can correct your form in real time and things like this. So I think that, you know, it's particularly in the D2C space, there is a lot of room, I mean, in fitness for sure, for kind of many players and many winners, right? We saw it in fashion earlier, right? You know, when you had, you know, Mintra was not the only company out there, right? You kind of got Shein, you've got, you know, Agio, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think carving out where is your differentiation, where is your niche? Like I say, for us, it's been very much on kind of freshness of content. You know, why are we different from a YouTube video? Because there is a plethora of free content out there as well. You know, so it's about making, for us, fresh content and content that hits the consumer, that hits our consumer. You know, I think one of the best things that we also see is we see people that love us, and we all see people that hate us. And this is actually fantastic, because, you know, when you are polarizing in any any kind of space, it generally means that, you know, you're kind of you at least you have a differentiation, right? You know, and it's something that we know the guys that love us, and, you know, the people that do love us are, you know, thankfully the people that we are trying to target. But the people that also hate us give us a lot of you know, a lot of insight, and these aren't actually the people we want to hit. So I think that, you know, every space might feel crowded, right? You know, but I also think that if you have whatever your USP is, whatever your company values are, whatever resonates with your customer, you want to double, triple, quadruple down on that. And if you can successfully execute that, you will have an audience, and you will have a customer base. So I say for us, it's particularly in live, in content, in making the workout fun and being experiential. And, you know, for someone like a cult, obviously, who is in the same sphere, it's just about, you know, providing a huge width of service, right? You know, you can do Zumba, you can do yoga, you can do this and that. We're a lot more specific, but kind of higher on the experiential factor, and for us that kind of leads to you know, we've seen kind of higher repeats, higher retention, and a better kind of customer lifetime value. But, you know, it really depends on what your particular goal is with your product.
Perfect, Rishi. That's great. I guess it echoed with a lot of what thoughts Shailesh put forward, and, you know, you also offer a lot of that's how you create differentiation. I guess with a lot of crowd in the market, it's important to create differentiation, and how we are really different. Our value proposition is different from that, and that really needs to be communicated through the marketing messaging. That's great. I mean, Anu, now I'd like to come to you, and you know, specifically you mentioned, right, it was very important for you to really win the trust of farmers, right? And somebody who's coming, really going to them and have never, you know, it's going into a rural space. You mentioned that you needed to win their trust. And as everyone is echoing, you know, knowing your customer is important. But could you share with us some stories that really, you know, worked, some stories or some plans or strategies that worked for you in winning the trust of somebody who's a farmer and making them believe in you and in your vision?
Chinmay, I guess Anu just got disconnected.
Oh, no worries. Prashant, would you like to take that?
Chinmay, can you just repeat the question again?
Yeah. So I was saying, it's quite important to win the trust of farmers and, get to do business with them where somebody's coming from outside. And winning the trust is an important factor. And as everyone mentions, that knowing your customer and where they're at is the first step. But if you could share some of the stories, anecdotes that really worked for you in terms of how did you really win their trust? What did you specifically do? It might really help the audience understand the principles of creating that delight.
Okay, yeah. So Chinmay, so our core objective of Mera Kisan has been always to bring farm prosperity through market linkage. So I think the question is all about how did we win the trust of the farmers? So one of the most important in terms of the market linkage for the farmers is the payment itself. Okay, so if the farmer gets the payment on time, so and that has been ensured to him, so that's a trust which the farmer wants, because in the past, farmer has lost a lot of money in terms of when he has sold the material to the other buyers. So maybe some of the buyers would have promised him that they would like to pay them in the 2 days or 3 days or a week or months, but many farmers in India have lost a lot of money. So I think with the Mera Kisan, it was very important for us that we do the timely payment to them. So till date, I think our farmers, whenever we do the procurement, if we do the procurement on the day, the same day the farmer gets the payment by 7 p.m. The farmer gets the payment in his account. But way back in 2015, 16 and 17, not many farmers had the digital or the bank accounts. So we had a provision of cash also, so where we used to pay the farmers on time. Apart from that, this was the primary is the payment itself. So there are secondary ways of where where you have to develop the trust of the farmer is the continuous procurement from these farmers. So if Chinmay is a farmer who is based in Gurugram, in and around of Gurugram, so if I procure once, so Chinmay won't be able to build the trust. If I'm continuously procuring from him, and in this continuous process of procurement, I'm doing all those best things to him in terms of educating him in terms of the market linkage, educating him in the buyers, educating him in the packaging mechanism, in terms of the produce as well. So the continuous procurement also builds a trust as well. So the two things, one is the payment and the continuous procurement. And we've been doing this for the last 4 years. Now, because Mera Kisan is associated with Mahindra, so there is a lot of legal compliances, ethical things which we have to be associated as well. So that's the two major things, Chinmay. Yeah.
Thank you, Prashant. I mean, great. It's what really, the key takeaway is it's not just a one-time activity. You have to keep being consistent with your payment and keep a relationship. Like, relationship is important in retaining them, and after they have been acquired, a good positive user experience and a positive experience is important.
Yes.
So I mean, with the interest of time, I had a couple of questions, but I guess our audience has a lot of questions. So I'll just have one more question and sort of combine it there. So, initially founders who might not have experience in marketing or sales tend to have options wherein they need to hire an agency or hire a consultant or do it themselves. So it depends definitely case to case basis. But if there's a founder who really does not have the background of marketing, what really would you suggest they do? What kind of options do they have? Do they read books? Do they have growth consultants? Or do they do it all? In your experience, what works the best? That is A. And second, throughout your industry, when you're seeing an experience, when you're seeing new startups come up, what are some of the mistakes that you see that they do in their sales, marketing, and even the customer onboarding? Prashant, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Chinmay, I think as a startup, first of all, it is very important. Before I start, I think people who are in this startup, they should read a very wonderful book, which I've got an opportunity through Mahindra to attend one of the bigger sessions with Mukesh Ambani ji and Narayan Murthy, where one of the book which has changed the entire perception towards the way we do the business was there's a book called Think Inside the Box. So before we very important as a startup is before you actually get into the sales and marketing part of it, you always need to know is what is your right to win factor in your business.
Correct.
The day you achieve the right to win factor, it makes more easier. Yeah. And so Chinmay, my nature is always to give very short and clear, crisp answers. So the second thing I always believed in the startup is never make simple complex. Yeah? Make a complex simple. Yeah. So when you are trying to do your sales and marketing, understand your product well. Okay. Understand the purpose of what are you trying to do it. Who are your customers, as I mentioned in my first thing, and who are not your customers. And I think before we actually get into the market, you should all the whole team within if you are a one founder or there are co-founders. So being on the same page is very important. So the team across your startup should also be on the same page in terms of your product understanding, your sales, your marketing. Yeah. So that is the very important. I think personally for me as a startup entrepreneur, I was actually romancing with the passion and idea for the first 2 years. So one thing I've changed in the last 2 years is to romancing with your financial numbers. It's very, very important.
Right.
So, yeah. So this I've been training. I've been sharing this when my the session has started. So be clear with your with your financial model. So you can definitely succeed, but you might be able to you will be able to acquire customers, but if it is not fitting into your margins, you're not able to get into your fixed expenses. So this is where the startups actually fail into it. Yeah. So we are all as entrepreneurs, we are romancing a lot with the idea and passion. So I think there should be one person in your team who is very clear about your accounting. Because accounting, again, why I'm saying this, financials, again, your sales and marketing, what is your budget should be for your sales, what should be the budget for your marketing are very, very clear. Okay. So yeah, so that's the view from my side, Chinmay.
Perfect. I mean, great book. Think Inside the Box. It is. I'll let the audience know. It's a must read. Now that you have suggested, and it's coming from the big and giants itself. And it's great, right? Numbers tell you the story. So it's important to also focus on the numbers as well. Shailesh, I'll come to you. So should you hire an agency if you don't have the expertise, and some of the mistakes that you see early startups making in the sales and marketing that we can learn from?
Again, it depends, but believe me, as a founder, you'll not succeed if you don't get your hands dirty.
Right.
As a founder, you cannot be expert in everything. So ask, your question first, should you actually read and try and get some knowledge? You should. One should. I mean, that is the least a founder can do, is try and get some understanding on the subject, which is a question here, let's say. Whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's finance, whether it's legal compliance, a lot of things. And today, all this is available for no cost. Right? Spend time reading. At least get a sense, because even if tomorrow you hire a marketing agency and talks about some numbers of what is CPC or some of impression cost and stuff like that, how would you argue? What would you know?
Right.
So first thing, get some basic understanding. There are numerous courses available, a lot of information available. Do that. Right? Spend time reading about all these things. Now, getting to the next question of whether should you hire an agency or not, I don't think it will be a bad idea, but you should be very, very cautious of how do you spend money, especially on marketing. You should, if you allocate any money, so as I said, right, first you yourself try and understand what user personas are, where your users would be, what's the best channel to do that. You should do your research. Then ask the agency to do your research for you. Try and make sense if both of them are correlating to an aspect. Then you should have a budget if you're experimenting. Don't go out without a budget. And believe me, if you really want to test whether your strategies are working out or not, you don't really need a huge budget. you can do it like pretty cheap and with simple hacks. So find a marketing agency. That quite a few, and but also try and find somebody who you would otherwise know personally well as well. That will just make it easier. But do your homework and research. Without that, don't get into it.
Any mistakes you see, early founders making in their journey?
These days, I think people are very, very smart. We made tons of mistakes. So when I'm looking at from that perspective, what I see of startups doing, today, are honestly doing exceptional work. And some of the other things have opened up, like influencer marketing, what TikTok and now Instagram Reels and others are doing, were not there early on, and how they can make leverage and good use. I mean, honestly, I'll be the wrong person to say if some of them are doing anything wrong, because I've not been able to, or I've not come across quite a few of them who are doing it the wrong way, or I find some mistakes. So, in general, I believe people are way more aware today about marketing, and especially in the B2C segment, than we were aware when we just started, like 6 years ago.
Perfect. I guess we have some burning questions from the audience. Palak, why don't you go ahead and get them? Thank you so much, Shailesh, Rishi, Prashant, Anu. I got some of great tips. I wrote down some ideas and some book recommendations that we must read. Palak, why don't you go ahead and ask some questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chinmay. I have some questions from the audience. Let's pick them one by one. So the first question is, if someone is starting up a D2C brand in their personal care industry, then as we know that there is high competition in the industries today, so what factors decide that the customer will purchase from you and not from other big brands? So it's a very general question, like based on the loyalty of customers, like apart from monetary discounts, what stays a customer to you? I'd like to answer, Shailesh sir, please answer this.
Your D2C, again, competition is always going to be high, right? D2C, if you're looking at, from the perspective that I see what's going on, the thing is competition is high, but the industry is huge, right? Anything that you do, and this is general GAN, this is not specifically just D2C or B2C or B2C, whatever. The only two ways of growing your business or finding a large business is, one is you start in an industry which is small today, but is going to go big tomorrow, right? If you can find that space, jo aaj chota hai, if you're a part of it today, but you know that this 50 crores is going to become 5,000 crores tomorrow, right? Is a great thing, right? And a lot of these guys have done it. Think of EdTech early ones and all these guys, right? They picked up something which was small then, but it's growing exceptionally fast. So if you own a certain percentage of it today, even if it's small or large, and you end up owning 20% of a 5,000 crore market, you're significantly large, okay? And the other way of doing it is you pick a very large market, but you find a very simple and a small use case you're trying to solve today, and grow in that vertically. And once you have established yourself as a player in that just one simple category of that very large market, is when you expand on it. See, if it's a very, very large market, there will be a lot of players, there will be a lot of competition. So the good part with D2C is it's a very, very large market, right? And with your kind of model and everything's coming up, there's a lot of money as well. So the fact is, if there are a lot of people who are just trying to do something in the personal care category in industry, which is huge, which is honestly humongous, you find something which is a very specific category. I know Mama Earth was just doing for babies, right? Some of them are doing something else. Why don't you actually do something for aging? I don't know, just a simple thing, right? And once you have that category is when you start deploying. But believe me, the most important thing is your product should be good. If your product is not good, it will not scale beyond a point. If your product is great, and if you find that one small fit where you want to play around in, is when you can grow exceptionally well. But again, I was not the right guy to answer D2C, but I tried my best.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I should ask this question to Rishi instead. Rishi sir, are you there?
Yeah, I think Shailesh, for a non-D2C guy,
yeah,
did a pretty solid job. You know, I echo those sentiments pretty much entirely. And you know, I think that actually, if you're going into somewhere in the D2C space and there's not a lot of competition, I would actually start to ask myself some questions as to whether there's actually a market or not. But you know, I think I think Shailesh covered it kind of very, very well. I don't have too much to add really, other than, you know, just to reinforce, which is it is a crowded space. It is a huge market. Find your niche, and, you know, double down on that. And if you have a great product and that, you know, you double down those brand values, you will find an audience within that space. There is a lot of competition for a reason also, right? It is a humongous market. And if that's something that you are kind of trying to push into, if you have a great product, find the problem you're trying to solve. You know, I think Shailesh mentioned Mama Earth. You know, you can also look at, you know, what the Arata guys have done, right? Which is kind of, they said, okay, India doesn't have a male-centric kind of organic area of skincare, and you know, and they've also, that's been their niche, and they've, you know, scaled kind of fantastically well through that as well. So you know, don't be afraid, be differentiated, and you know, make sure you have a great product, and you know, you know, I think when you kind of look at then your marketing on the back of that, you know, in the D2C space, one of the things you'll look at very, very closely is going to be your CLV to CAC ratio, so your customer lifetime value to acquisition cost ratio, you know, and be very, very data first. Be ruthless, because numbers don't lie. People will lie. People say your product is great, but if, you know, if that story isn't told in the numbers, the margin, the repeats, then, you know, and I think get that data set up early on. I think what a lot of people sometimes fail to do is that they kind of know what they're doing. They'll put out a marketing campaign, but, you know, you might not think you need it on day one, but I promise you it will yield a lifetime of value. Get your data, your analytics set up from day one. Use custom UTMs. Make sure you're tracking every campaign. Make sure you know what results everything is giving you to find out what is your ROI. There's also a book called Social Media ROI, which is probably worth reading. And, you know, and get your hands dirty, get your head stuck in, and you know, and be bold. Be bold, and do not be afraid of a little competition, because that means it's an area that's ripe for a little disruption.
All right. Now let's jump to the second question. We have the second question is for Shailesh sir. It is very difficult to meet the decision maker in a B2B setup. The sales cycle is long. How does one figure out a way to get to the decision maker as a startup founder who gets blocked right at the reception because we lack credibility? In most cases, our visiting cards and brochures don't make it past the receptionist. Okay.
So I see this question is from Google, and this is for everybody. Guys, if you think startup is easy, you're in for a wrong ride. You're going to have a lot of trouble. First thing is get used to the fact that it's going to be tough. First thing you get used to is the fact that the amount of headwinds you'll see, the amount of rejections you'll see, the passive comments, the environment from everybody. Right? Aaj to fir bhi cheeze bahut better hai, believe me. But you know, your family, friend, everybody is just gonna say, why are you throwing your life away? A lot of things, right? So, guys, this is a customer, and who's supposed to pay you, right? Think about the amount of pushback you'll get from your customer. And in a B2B setup, there's no right answer. There is no easy answer. I myself have spent, I don't know how many hours sitting outside doctors' clinics, 3 hours, 4 hours at a stretch. Don't have a choice. Standing in the queue as MRs and went there again and again and again. You got to do it. Right? And, 3 days, the doctor sees you, you're coming every day. You just stand there, no problem. Tell the receptionist, no problem, I'm just here. Right? He will see you the 4th day, but you have to spend 3 days there. There's no other choice. Otherwise, of course, try, sure, all of us have friends and connect these days. If there's a doctor or let's say any B2B customer in your category and space that you're working on, go and try and find somebody through reference who would actually open the door for you, listen to you, give you some feedback, and through them ask for more references and connects. It'll work out. But you'll have to set it. You have to spend time on the street. There's no other way. Right? So get used to it. Do that, sweat it out. And if your product is good, and if you stick at it, you'll succeed.
So I hope, Gokul, you got your answer that there is no short trick to it. You have to sweat out. You have to work. You have to wait. So with this, I would like to thank all of our speakers. I sincerely thank our honorable speakers, Ms. Meena, Mr. Prashant Patil, Mr. Shailesh Prithani, and Mr. Rishi Baveja for sharing their experience and their best piece of advices with us. It was an honor and extreme pleasure to have this diverse panel of guests with such vivid experiences in their entrepreneurial journey. We are highly grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts with us. Thank you so much for enlightening us with your valuable words and for your gracious presence. I would also like to thank Team Startup Stairs for curating such an insightful event, and of course, our lovely audience for being so participative and inquisitive. And if you have any queries for us, you can shoot your questions on our help desk, and you can follow us on our social media handles for the latest updates. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in.